All right. Hi, BikeRumor fans. Today we are here with Alexey Vermeulen and Lani Benson from Pearl Izumi, and Alexey is here with what's the name of the team, Alexey? What's the full name of the team?
My team?
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I don't think there is any. I think it's just Alexey and Willie's dad, or however you want to go with it.
Yeah, I was thinking of that. I was like, he's here with Pearl, Envy, and
I'm here with Pearl. That's the
yeah,
difference.
and
No,
and you're here with Pearl. Yeah.
I'm here with Pearl, and today we're not working on a skin suit for my dog. We're talking about a product.
Is that what I walked in on? That I was I feel that's we're gonna have to table that one for a little later because that there's a lot of
It
stuff there.
exists.
I talk about that with my cat. We
We
just
might
got
need to do like second generation skin suit. So there's definitely some room for improvements from what we've heard from Willie.
is he in the wind tunnel? I imagine it going over the eyes for some reason and just being like a complete
We haven't gotten that far. That's a good point.
like
But
more. I
it's
think
arrow.
it's more of a superhero conversation, I think. But yeah. So thank you guys for joining me today. And this is a very unique collaboration because we're not just talking about bike racing, but we're talking about bike gear and most specifically bike kit. And it's going to be very cool because Pearl, I feel like in the last couple years, has had this resurgence of its glory. Like I feel like these really good products have been coming out. It's been being pushed to the forefront with all these excellent athletes. And the test gear we've been receiving has been phenomenal.
Hey, I'd like to
So
hear that.
yeah, I'm stoked. I have some bibs here to talk about too, which is like very cool. Like they're, I mean, you know how you check the zipper, see if it's YKK, all the other stuff, and everything is fantastic. So I guess if you don't mind, for those who didn't join us last call about winter layering and all that other stuff, if you could give a little intro and let the people know what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. So Lani Benson, and I'm the product line manager for Pearl Izumi. I've been around Pearl Izumi for my whole life. So the last decade, I've been selling Pearl Izumi to wholesale channels and key accounts. I've been working on the product team for a couple of years now. And before that, I bought Pearl Izumi on the cycle floors for the Vail Resorts, Bicycle Village, Front Range areas. And then before that, I sold it as a retail associate back in the day with Galleons and Dick's Sporting Goods. So I feel like I've been a lifer at Pearl.
Yeah.
And seen all of its ups and downs. And you're right, Jordan. With the most recent sale from Shimano to our new ownership, United Sports Brands, the new ownership saw a major need to get back to performance cycling apparel and back to race-minded apparel, which was our legacy roots. We had under Shimano a big and very important focus to move into eco-friendly, to get our line front and center, being responsible, building the line, exploring extended sizing and our bike style opportunities, but
Custom.
can't do
You guys did
everything.
tons of custom. We did
Yep.
at one of the shops I worked with. It was Trek of Pittsburgh. We did tons of custom stuff through you guys. It was
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. It was really nice, and it was all bundled
Yeah.
in with Shimano, which was kind of nice.
Yeah. So all of that's being maintained. It's just now that we've laid the groundwork and that's kind of built into our DNA, it's back to how can we get back to innovation? How can we best support our athletes? And so that's what we're here to talk about today.
I was really stoked to see at Sea Otter all of the older kits that you all had on the walls. Those got me really stoked because, like I mean, younger kids getting into the sport, they don't know a lot like who's been around, and I've put my foot in my mouth many times talking to brands that I'm like, who is this Bianchi, or something like that.
Yeah,
When you're like a
right.
young
Yeah.
kid, you don't know. They're
Yeah.
not Haro. They're not what you want to ride, So like
Yep.
it's really tough to explain the depth that Pearl has, but it's
Yeah.
really cool. And it came from, like most things, it comes from racing, all that push to be able to like get out there and, be amongst the fast folks, and
Yeah.
that
I think
dovetails.
we were having a hard time trying to find if there was another cycling brand that was older than Pearl. And I think we saw Castelli back in the day used to do like dance or like figure skating gear or something crazy. And then they went into cycling.
They run very like
yeah.
linear, like, or excuse me, it's very like a parallel or adjacent. Like it's the speedwear for like Olympic ice skaters, the speed skating, like even like the Lotto Jumbo team had like some speed skating apparel that looked almost like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a big crossover, but
I challenge any of your listeners to bring forth, but for us, it was pretty much Castelli, even though they weren't really doing cycling until maybe after Pearl started doing cycling. But we're about to have our 75th anniversary this year. Well, not about, we are.
whoa.
So our first Pearl Izumi cycling kit was designed for, there was a Japanese man that had a son that was racing, and it was the whole rage was this wool cycling jersey, as we all know. And you see some of the original that you saw at Sea Otter was maybe not that first jersey, but it was from built in Japan, wool original jersey, replicas since then, but we had that original there in Sea Otter. So that was kind of fun. And it's fun to see and to discuss, if you want to nerd out on it, like how textiles have evolved and gotten so sophisticated all the way up to this new Polartec Alpha material that you're seeing in garments today.
Now, were there shorts wool too? Yeah. Is that a misnomer? Or were they like, wool is king, let's just deck everybody out in wool?
Yeah, I think first generation, but as you know, well, maybe you don't know, but wool in its natural state does not, it can shear and it's not durable whatsoever.
Oh yeah, so I've had many jerseys.
Without it blending with something in a high friction zone is not ideal. So probably not much on our bottoms because of the movement that you have to maintain.
That'd be a slick outfit though. That'd be like the full wool. Well, that dovetails.
The woolly mammoth.
Yeah, see, it's right there. Well, that brings us over to Alexey, who brings in that athlete side with the super cool guy that's easy to work with, and you get all the pro feedback and be able to develop products that riders actually want, instead of, if I was developing products, it'd just be all cyclocross skin suits all day, because I think I'm like, well, this is what I like. Let's just, this is it. And that's not how to run a business. You got to be able to have everybody and all the new trends. So Alexey, give us a little info, man.
I don't know if I'm easy to work with. I'll let Lani say that, but I feel like I push a lot. I feel like I don't conform to the norms we see in cycling right now. I'm not a big believer in aerodynamic all the time, which is, I feel like, where every direction of clothing and all bicycles are going.
Water bottles and handlebars and
not that it's not worth it. I just think it's worth it in the right time, and understanding why and how you're utilizing it, and not choosing that over comfort at times when you have a race like Unbound 350, for example.
Oh my gosh. Even cool points. I'm sorry to say, some of these helmets are getting out of control, so.
It's everything though. It's not just clothing, but I always laugh at that because I feel like every comment that I make when I'm in the office, they'll be like, oh, well, these athletes said it needs to be more aerodynamic and we need aerodynamic socks. And I was like, that's cool. I appreciate that. That's not the next thing I'm looking for right now.
Yeah. Not the next game, right?
It's not that I don't care about that. I just make gut decisions based on how you feel, which I think it's treated me well, but it's the thing I try to teach younger athletes is like, you have to follow your gut at any given moment. The way you're going to win a race is your way. You can't follow how Keegan's going to do it. You can't follow how Sophia's going to do it.
Yeah.
It's you. And so how do you move through that? How do you learn? I think that's the value of a company having multiple different athletes, is getting different opinions.
100%.
And the hard part, distilling that down into actual answers that can provide forward movement on clothing. But I've been stoked to be with Pearl for 5 years now. I was with them 3 years on BMC before that. I feel like I have stuff from back in the day. My parents bought me like the first wool long sleeve that was a little itchy, but I still wore it to school.
Oh, that was the best. We talked about that, Lani and I. Yeah, at Sea Otter. You guys had one that was like that, and all the moths in my closet ate it. But then you had one that had it was like a mesh underlining. It was almost like a basketball short under it. And that was like, so it stayed together. If it got holes, you were cool. Like, Yeah, it may be upstairs in the closet because I
And I'm
never
just a
throw things
sentimental
out.
guy. Pearl makes better things every year, but that's my favorite part is someone will be like, hey, have you tried the new gloves? And I'm like, I'm still on the ones I started using in 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No
I have like
reason
it's almost and that's like that we talk about that internally, Alexey. It's like, okay, we want this stuff built to last, built for a lifetime. We don't, back to the eco story, what's the best way to not waste is not to have to re-up every single or several times a season. Like just build stuff to last. And hopefully that is a main pillar of Pearl that's known to the masses, is that we make stuff built to last, high quality, better, good fitting. But there's so many times I've gone on local group rides and you see people wearing micro sensor, ultra sensor shorts. And you're like, I know that there's no holes, but that chamois has to be blown out. You have to get a new pair.
That was like that short was the one we sold at the shop. It's like they bought a bike and you're like, let me bring you to the bib section of the store, and you're like, have you heard of the ultra sensor or the Attak short, and that was it. But those shorts, you knew it. They always came in black. They matched every kit. And that was why we sold them, and But yeah, it is a little frightening when you see that, or you see the elastane like fried on the outside of someone's kit. And you're like, oof, that's that chamois fried. But yeah, I do want to talk about chamois too, because we did some chamois talk at Sea Otter, and you showed me the chamois that was in the new short, and I have this short right here because I like it. And or wait, no, this is. I sleep with it. I just have it attached to me all the time. Actually, this is the wrong short. This isn't the one with the cloud chamois. This is the one with the what's the chamois that has the two pieces that we were talking about at Sea Otter. I thought that was unbelievable.
So our Pro Levitate and actually our Elite Levitate chamois.
Levitate, not cloud. It was something above the ground.
It's kind of floating above, but the philosophy on the chamois overall design that we try to take through all levels of it is that most chamois have soft, there's different material, different foam densities in order to achieve what you want in a chamois. So you want stiffer densities to add the bone support, but you want more airy material to promote circulation, moisture transfer, airflow, right, to deal with the heat and so forth. And historically, the softer, more plush foam was always against the skin because that's where your moisture and so forth is at. And it's the softness to your body. But we actually reverse engineered that in this most recent design where we put the more stiff foam closer to body and the more soft. And that's to replicate a lot of people that know bikes. It's like a progressive suspension fork where you preload stiff and then it gets softer. Yeah. And that way you don't bottom out. And so it's that concept in foam. So you're less likely to hit the sit bones and disperse that weight and levitate kind of more off the saddle, right? And we use pressure mapping, used 40 different saddles that are common in the market, use these chamois with a bunch of different weight and people, and we can pressure map and test and see scientifically that we were achieving the results we were looking for. So that's definitely in there. We did on the Expedition Pro chamois, though, that you were looking at Sea Otter, is that we just made a minor update in our new Expedition bottoms to shape the chamois with that philosophy a little bit more contoured in a three-dimensional shape. So the top sheet doesn't have to fold as much, and that means it seeds against the rider's bottom and doesn't move and doesn't fold maybe as much and pucker in your high friction zones.
Yeah, these are the shorts that I'm very into right now. They have that little zip on the side, a hint of green, and you got the quarter of fabric, all that jazz. These are the ones that
that's our new Expedition Pro. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one's fantastic. Now, I did want to bring Alexey in, like, for you all riding, like, because you're mainly focused on gravel right now. The races are longer. They're you're going through hydration packs and things like that. Like, is this chamois something that you like? Is this the way that you were gravitating towards, to like a thicker chamois being on the bike that long, or something? I know riders have a different preference. Some more elite riders like a less of a chamois, and some of them like more. Like, how did you guys kind of agree on this?
Yeah, I've loved the Expedition Pros from the minute they came out. I think the problem with the original Expeditions that was like pockets when they came into riding shorts tended to stretch out. The first 4 or 5 rides, you'd have a great time. This was every company.
100%.
And then after that, you start losing wrappers and you start losing things, or your
they
foam
didn't have the thing on the top. They didn't have that like binder, on the top, and that was key.
And I think when I first picked up the Expedition Pros, I always try to like I always try to be really judgmental when I pick something up the first time before I put it on, before I ride in it, because that's the first touch point that most people will have at a store. They won't ever feel it. I think that's the one, not issue, but question mark with the Expedition Pros. If someone picks it up and thinks it's going to be rough on their skin, or they think it's going to be a little bit harder to ride in, but it's one of the most comfortable chamois I've ever ridden in. And it's something that I gravitate to a lot. I think my only input in that was mainly around the way it fit on the rider and how you had to get into it and get out of it. Because I think sometimes not all these chamois are different. We all have different grippers. We all have different bodies. And so it's trying to make sure that someone gets that chamois to sit on them correctly.
Yeah.
And half of the education that just cycling tends to be poor at. We tend to just say, hey, this will protect your bottom. Have fun.
Well, yeah, but you got to do the move, get it in there. And then once it's in there, you're like, all right, this is it, and people don't do that. They don't, you got to align. If you wear the same shorts a lot, that tan line can be a very good, it's a good way to line up the shorts. Like if this isn't at your tan line that you usually have, like then your shorts are not up. They're not installed correctly yet.
But yeah, that's one of my favorite shorts. It's, I think it's just for anybody, you can put anything in there, right? Like I don't love having keys and hard things in my back pockets on my back, because to me, it's always a risk of crashing and how that hits your spine or any of your ribs. So I tend to avoid putting keys and avoid putting my cell phone in my back pocket. And so this allows for a whole different opportunity to kind of hide all that stuff.
Yeah, it's unique in the way that it's a really progressive short as far as like the way that, like we see a lot of Pearl things. It's pretty, I wouldn't say safely designed, but there's a lot of like standbys that you're like, okay, this is what it's going to be like, but this is really highly developed. And I like the back too, like how you were saying the cut. Is there anything that you did differently going into these ones? Because I feel like gravel racing and just high performance racing anymore, everything's trying to be so moisture wicking, and this does have the quarter of panels in it, which really helps, like you hit a tree, like I mountain biking a lot, you like the tree hits your butt a little bit, you scrape it, but like did you do anything to make it a little more easy breezy? Like I noticed the back is very open, where the pockets are, it almost sits sort of like a short. What's the deal with that? Anything extra special sauce there?
You're talking, for me, I would say from a design perspective, you'll see a lot of other brands put a mesh panel or some other material to encase the back. We like to stay minimalist. We only want to add things to our product with purpose, and we didn't see a purpose. We anticipate most folks are wearing mesh base layers here, and our design didn't demand. A lot of time the mesh panel is so it can hold bib straps that maybe have a different pattern. And with our pattern, it was unnecessary. So for us, we always believe less is more. We want to remove as much noise, especially at the high end, as necessary. So I think a lot of comments I heard from folks, to Lexi's point, is on the shelf, you might say, oh, the zipper's kind of burly, or this material feels kind of crunchy and heavy. But if you get into that product, it doesn't feel that way on body whatsoever. We have actually measured with gram scales competitors' products with very similar spec, and we are actually significantly over 20 grams lighter than the competitive market. And a lot of that could be the weight of our chamois, but I just think that it just goes to show you that we're paying attention to not just durability in this bib, but also performance from a sweat management, to evaporate the material through the material quickly. So
now, Alexey, do you race in these guys, or do you use your custom kits most of the time? Is this like training stuff?
Occasionally. I think the nice part for me is that, and I did this purposely, that Neil over at Envy is like, my biggest fan at the same time. So
we
if
all
I'm
love
like, hey,
nails.
but I was like, this is the better option for me to race. He doesn't mind that we lose an NB logo on the side of the shorts, which is all that's gained for me.
Yeah.
I like those better than the custom inline that I have for expedition shorts most of the time.
Yeah.
But it really depends on the weather. Like I honestly do sometimes lean toward the expedition custom stuff because it's a little heavier. And like if I know, like we race at 6:30 or 7 a.m. sometimes.
Yeah,
like
it's crazy.
Sometimes the expedition pros are a little light for what I want because I hate being cold.
Yeah.
I'm from Michigan. I know no one expects that, but I hate being cold. Only use when you have to.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really depends on the race, and that even for me, like it drifts into like even deciding on a skin suit, right? Like I see all these guys, no question, every day it's a skin suit. And I was like, screw that, man. I don't know if you've ever like needed to do something in a skin suit, but it's not utilitarian at all.
No, it doesn't work. It's not meant for that. But it's also not meant for carrying tons of stuff. I mean, maybe the new skin suits have a little bit of like side pockets, but you guys, it's a lot of feeding, like it's self-supported, right? So like I was going to ask, what do you put in the pockets? Like you got the zip pocket, you got the auxiliary pocket, on the side, and then the two on the back. Are you like really loading up? Because you guys got to take tons of calories on the bike.
Yeah, racing the shorts are all about trash.
Yeah.
Trash management. So gels are pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
When you don't finish them fully, which most of us can't. We're just not good enough on the bike to finish gels fully.
Yeah.
Yeah, it ends up, usually I have trash going in my pockets because it's easy to discard when you get to a feed zone. You're not trying to fish through and find which one is full and which one's not in your back pocket.
Yeah.
And I kind of just organize my back pockets as I want. And that's the biggest thing, obviously, is we have the same amount of space on the skin suit, I'd say. Like you have two big pockets. For me, it's just organization. So if I'm really struggling with like what I'm going to have in each pocket, or where do I want caffeine gels and where do I want regular gels and where do I want flat kit, to me, that's where the jersey comes in play, is I can just utilize all of those pockets on my legs and on the back and kind of organize things so that it's not a thought when I come into the feed.
That's awesome. Yeah, because it's cool to see like these in practical use of like, the rider that's going to the trail, maybe put your keys in the side, you put like your wallet or something there that you don't want. But like for the racers, I think that's like cool to bridge the gap and being like, yeah, these are actually like a great piece of race kit, to have.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing is I think when you're racing, I always say this about everything, whether it's tires or anything else, it's not like pre-ride, it's not like training.
Yeah.
You're not thinking straight. You're not making choices like you normally would.
100%.
So the simplest way forward is the best. And I think that is dependent on the person, but that's usually where I make decisions. And, even if Lani were to tell me, hey, well, you're racing a jersey and it's 5 watts slower than the skin suit, I still know that I'm going to lead toward a jersey if it's unbound, because I want to be able to pee easily. I want to be able to do all these things that you have to do as a human. And I don't want to stress about those things more than I'm already stressing about the racing.
Yeah. I feel like, all that stuff, it just weighs and you don't need any of that. So if we want to talk like completely just go through a full kit of like what you're on race day. So we got the shorts and then like jersey, like for me, unfortunately, like there's like, I know there's a lot of stuff out there. It's like aero base layers. There's aero jerseys, this other stuff. I'm usually just reaching for the kit in my drawer that, fits the weather conditions for that day. The Pearl stuff, I noticed the new stuff is very sheer. It's the newer, I'm just talking probably about the newer lightweight stuff. But what kind of technology goes into the jersey now that we have gravel racing that requires, lots in the pockets and things like that, and more of like a sophisticated cut with racing?
Yeah. I think a lot of it is all about layering. I mean, the same as training, but now you're dealing with it even at a higher level when you're racing, because you're trying to not lose clothes and you want to kind of collect things in an easy basket. One of the things I think it's interesting, the last time we were in Pearl, is I was utilizing things that are made to be for entry level stuff.
Yeah.
Utilize all the time because it was easier or more packable or fit something better, even though it wasn't made to, say, block the wind as well as another jacket.
Yeah.
So when I'm going to race, that's typically how it is. I almost always lean toward the mesh jersey. It feels better on my arms for longer events.
And the arms are long now too. I feel like in every jersey, it went from, remember the cupcake sleeves that like went up and that was like it, right? You got these like muscle, and you looked like a like a bodybuilder, you know, or like you're in too tight of a shirt. And I feel like those started going away, and then you started getting these jerseys where it went really low. And I'm happy with the way that the new Pearl stuff is cut, because it feels like perfectly on that bicep and go almost lower, you know, and it feels
move. It's no fun when it moves.
Oh yeah. You know, it just feels like it's, you know, you're exposed there, but also I don't like that abrasion point. It feels like it should just be nice and soft. You shouldn't notice it.
Yeah. And I'm a big mesh base layer guy, either sleeveless or sleeved, depending on the weather.
Yeah.
I think partly for temperature, but even more for me for crashing. When Pearl did a presentation, my first presentation ever with BMC, it was all about how clothing can slide over itself better than you can when you slide on asphalt. So there's a little bit of protection when you have a base layer on in a jersey when you first hit the pavement.
Lani's just like, she's over there, big agreeing head nod.
So that's the big thing, is I think people tend to just always be like, oh, I'm warm, I don't need the base layer, or it's not helping me. And that is a portion of it, like temperature control is part of it. But beyond that, for me, I like that side of having a base layer.
It's a slip liner, basically. Like it acts, you know, I was talking to someone a long time ago about gloves, and how people use gloves is like, you know, there's no padding. It's like, well, there's like an extra skin layer, but then when you crash, you know, but I never really thought about it as a slip liner or a secondary skin for crashing on the road with this base layer. So now I'm going to have to invest in more base layers, because mine are rough.
And it's kind of counterintuitive, but beyond the advantages that Alexey is bringing up of having base layer, it's people think even from a sweat management, heat management in the hot temp, I just want to wear my standard mesh jersey.
Yeah.
But if your skin is wet, that condensation actually heats you up. What you want is that moisture to get off of your skin and into fabrics and dispersed wide, so that when the wind chill and the wind hits you, it's kind of like a radiator effect, right? Is that it's cooling you. It actually is giving you a cooling moment. But if you don't have a couple of those layers to spread that moisture out in a high output heat scenario, then it's not as efficient from a cooling effect from your wind chill. So that it sounds counterintuitive to put an extra layer, but it's good to get that sweat moved and not so water droplets as much on your skin and moved into the fabric, so it can evaporate quickly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Will help do that.
It's also where you can have cool personality.
Oh yeah.
I keep pushing them to come back. They got a lot of white base layers right now. I got to bring back the color and flower patterns.
Yeah,
flower patterns. You need like the
you open up your jersey and you look cool. That's what I want.
That's it. Superman ones. You need like there's
Superman. I should do that one.
I do feel like that is that would be easy. It'd be real easy. Yes.
Just to finish it off, I think you have to go with your gut and how you want to race. But to me, it's always about having layers. What am I going to be able to throw in a feed zone? I.e., like arm warmers are super simple to take off and throw in a feed zone.
Yeah.
Typically, very rarely do I ever start in tights or leg warmers, because they are a lot harder to take off in gravel races. Road racing, you can always take the time, right? You go to the back of the peloton, you have time to take it off, rip it off your shoe. Gravel racing, half our feed zones are like, I barely have time to grab a feed bag.
You guys are flying through them now.
You go straight into the next feature. Somehow you're like, how is that a feed zone? I'm in single track right now with a feed bag.
Yeah. No,
So it's trying to figure out like, okay, where am I going to go to a feed zone? What am I grabbing in that feed zone? Because like if I have a vest on, I know I'm going to get hot, and I grab a feed bag. Now it's kind of annoying of like, now how am I organizing this stuff? What am I doing?
Yeah.
So it's kind of just trying to figure out how you tactically plan the race, and then from there, how cold to start. We've talked about even some of the starts. I'll even like Leadville, for example, in years I've gone to Goodwill and just gotten a sweatshirt I can throw to a fan, because it's not. I don't want to waste the Pearl stuff that I have, and I know. No questions asked, after the downhill 40-mile-an-hour start, I'm going to toss this thing.
Yeah, that is awesome, and that makes tons of sense. That's actually pretty legit too. That's an amazing.
Most races you don't need that, but Leadville starts at 6:30. It's cold.
Do you ever look for like extra cool sweatshirts that you find that you're like, this really screams me?
Just make some with Willie and just like do some cutoff stuff. It'd be funny.
Cutoff sweatshirts are the best. They look so.
We can help you with that, Alexey. Let's talk afterwards.
That can be the thing. We just start every race with it and toss it to a fan.
That's it.
Yeah.
Willie has enough fans.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like he he has a lot of fans. I was just on your page this morning, just kind of cruising through some stuff, and he's everybody just get the smile on their face, like when you see him.
Do you ever get jealous, Alexey? Like he's stealing your thunder?
You guys have meetings at the end of the day?
And you have no words inside yourself, and you just like, all I do is like turn my back and someone starts petting the dog. You're like, oh, what's his name? And you're like, oh, Willie. And then you just walk again. You pet him.
That's amazing. Yeah, it is cool to see him, and like even seeing you at Sea Otter, it's just like it really breaks it down of like, oh, there's a dog, like he's such a nice guy. But I do, secretly in my head, I imagine you guys having business meetings, like sitting down and being like, all right, we need to hit this hard, tuck down more during the rides. Like, how did you? This is a bit of a tangent, but how did you like find this? How'd you get him to be able to be so comfortable on a bike?
It's actually not me at all. My girlfriend's Australian. She got her master's from University of Michigan, where I grew up. And when we started dating, she didn't have a car. She was riding around with Willie in a backpack, just commuting, just getting around.
No way.
And as COVID hit and the pandemic happened, we just we started doing our activities together. But how do you include the dog with short legs? So first, like, hey, she'd drive out and meet me on a ride. We'd ride for an hour together, and I'd put him on my back. And as she'd do a long run, I'd ride beside her, and slowly, like, you started to realize, like, he doesn't care. He just wants to do it more.
Yeah, he's just like in it. Like he likes that stuff.
4 hours is where he stops having as much fun. But
that's me too. That's where I'm at. He
just goes to bed and then wakes up on the descent. He literally will just sleep on your shoulder.
God, I wish I could do that, but no, that'd be a different situation.
7 hours, which is pretty great.
Oh wow! What's he like? How does Willie get fed? Do you like? Is there a?
He's a big fan of Sturker bars.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, typically, like, feeding in bathrooms, like, and drinking is just all, like, it's just a little more, right? Yeah. So, like, I stop to go to the bathroom, say a human's, stopping every 2 hours or so. Like, once I get past 90 minutes, I'll probably stop every hour for him. And just like, hey, you want to get out and stretch your legs? Go do it.
Does he get jelly legs too? Like, I know when I used to put my kid on my shoulders, he would get off and he'd be, like, falling all over the place. He just couldn't start. Like,
I think for him it's fine because he, like, with his legs, I mean, we're really talking 3 inches. Like,
he scrapes the ground a little bit. His little, like, his
100%. He can, like, fully stand up in the backpack. Like, if I'm mountain biking, like, I'll feel him, like, brace for impact when we go over.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
So it's like he's really dachshunds are very stubborn. But like, I think that's the only time I put goggles on him is mountain biking. And he's fine with it. But the minute we finish, he's like ripping the goggles off on my helmet. Like, he knows exactly what he wants. And it's just trying to find that line of what's exciting and not dangerous. The thing that I tell people is, like, I just have to ride differently. Like, I ride a lot differently with Willie than I do, like, by myself normally. You have to pay attention the whole time. But it is the great equalizer of everything, right? Whether at an expo or out riding, like, I've gotten yelled at, like, oh, get out of the road. And they see the dog and they come back and apologize and want to say hi to the dog.
I'm so sorry. I didn't know you had a dog.
So it's kind of funny. Like, you're on a bike path, like, oh, you're going too fast. Oh, cute dog. Like, everything at an expo, half people are there not because of bikes, right? They're there because someone in their family rode bikes.
Yeah.
So they're like, got a dog? That's so cool.
Yeah. Well, it's such a, it breaks down the barrier of, like, toughness and cool racer stuff, but also it's just such it's so nice to see, just like, it's just pure happiness when I see him. He's just, like, stoked or he's sleeping. So those are the two. That's the two sides that I got. So
yeah, he is exhausted though. Everyone's like, oh, why did you fly home from Sea Otter before you went to Levi's? They're both in Northern California. And I said, because my dog is whacked.
Yeah.
Like, he came back and slept for a week and a half, I think. He just
poor guy.
Not move there. It's a lot of stimulation for a little dog.
Yeah, man, I can imagine. It's
a celebrity.
After Sea Otter, for me, I'm totally zonked. I think, like, just because of being in the sun and hanging out and seeing people and then being off the East Coast time schedule, like, I can't imagine in dog life, like, what's it like to try to.
And I think, it's just constant. Like, I'll turn around and someone else is petting him. Like, he doesn't. He gets picked up by anybody, and he's just like, oh, I'm along for this ride now.
That's awesome. I just think of my cat. My cat's not. Yeah, it's just such a mean person sometimes. Well, it's a mean cat. It's cool though. But let's dive back in. Sorry, side note on that one. So cover and jersey, base layer. What about, I know this is, and I just got some cool gloves from you all too, Pearl, new gel gloves. What's the glove situation here? Like I'm seeing, I've definitely seen like some aerodynamic time trial gloves and things like that. But is there a specific thing you look for while racing? Like I know that like the gel sometimes it displaces. For me, it's very hard to be able to like give up that bar feel, but you guys are on the bike for like 5-6 hours, like we said. Like what's the jam for you?
I don't think Lani wants me answering the glove question because I end up in like everyone asks me if I'm a construction worker or a gardener half the time because I'm like
over there are some like mechanics gloves. Like, don't you
no,
have
they're Pearl Izumi gloves. It's just like I'm in the Polsky glove, right? Like I'm in gloves that are like meant to be kind of fun factor, fit the vibe, go out on a fun couple ride, like full leather gloves. But they just feel good. And so I'm embracing them. Like even Levi's, I started with like a full Polsky glove. I'm in like a skin suit. And then I'm like, what am I doing right now?
But if it feels
this is why we love Alexey though, because he like brings things out of this theory of as you mentioned, everyone's on this bandwagon of aerodynamics and nothing can really be proven because it's not you can test in a wind tunnel, which is very static, right?
Yeah.
But the real world, as he just mentioned, what's the wind that day? What's the terrain? Like, all those things will impact the reality of your aerodynamics.
Yeah.
The positioning on your bike, blah, 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 right? And so what's fun with Alexey is he takes products. So as we talked before, we only try to use the best products for everything.
Yeah.
So we have the Kowalski glove, which is several years old.
Nothing like pushing the new stuff.
Right, is made of a very high quality, like axe-suede leather material, and it really does replicate and feel like a leather without any of the negative aspects.
That's the one that sort of looks like the Vermont glove. I'm sorry, it's a very like it looks like
buckskin colorway, right?
Yeah,
You'll see them.
I use that glove a lot. It's a very thick, because it feels good. It has that wind front and it's thin. And I think that's like
and pliable, right?
So sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to remember if this is the right glove. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why Alexey likes it, is because it feels organic. It's bomb proof. It's funny because he's brought them in and they have been worn. Like it's not like he wears them. And that version he has, back to what we were saying about Pearl before, is probably 4-5 years old. And when he wears it, and he hasn't blown the fingers out. Right. So there's no testament to how good our gloves are made.
Yeah.
But Alexey's definitely doing that for us. But I love the fact that he's willing to move across our line and find uses.
Is it really there? Is it like...
and he pushes the limits on our products that, so we can use them in different ways. And so he educates us often, and it helps for future development of where we can go. So,
do you ever try to like bridge that gap with like, okay, this is an elite cyclist, he's racing the hardest events, and this is like what he's doing. Can we get something that is like this and also satisfies that top end athlete?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what just in our recent, we're always working a couple years ahead. So we're looking at 27 right now from a development phase, and so we definitely are taking a lot of that feedback from all of our athletes. But why we like working with Alexey so much is that he always puts, there's the elite athlete, and they're inspirational and they matter absolutely. They help us push for innovation. But he always reminds us to like, okay, but what about everybody else? And Pearl, and that's why I think Alexey's one of he melds so well with the brand as itself, is that we can bring it, we can be the top of the heap, but Pearl is not an elitist brand. We're here to make product for the everyday rider, whether you're riding 5 days a week and you're not an athlete, a racer, right? Or if you're riding just to get finished with that charity ride that's in town. We want to make things that are approachable and for that consumer. And So Alexey helps us with the trickle down aspects. What are the features that work well for him, but also will work well for the masses? So we really appreciate that feedback.
So if you're not wearing this glove from 4 years ago, what's your go-to? Because those are full fingered, right? Like they're full fingered. They're like, I mean, they're almost like a fall glove. Like I've worn them for cyclocross practice a bunch of times. They're nice. They don't have a lot of grippers on them. But like, what do you do as far as like that brutal? Like, what did you ride last weekend?
So Levi's are in the Pro Air, the short fingers. But I started with the big leather glove on top of it and then tossed them in the feed zone.
That's
it works, right? That's why I like you try to put a racing glove on top of a short finger glove, and you like feel like you can't do anything. You can't close your. So like utilitarian. Beyond that, I do like the Expedition gel gloves. The race course has to fit them for me. Like if it's a super rough course, that's something that like you can put, like Roubaix, right? When they're playing around with double bar tape, it's the same thing for me. Like, hey, how am I going to grip this? How am I going to use it? It tends to be the only time the gel gets in the way for me is like just a final sprint.
Yeah, it kind of like moves a tiny bit.
Yeah, and if I'm racing in something like that, that's almost all the sprints are on asphalt.
Yeah,
like that's all these gravel races finish in town, and so the gloves will just come off at the finish if that's really what I'm worried about.
Yeah,
there's also certain races where I'm picking gloves based on how the temperature and everything's going to change, right? So maybe I'll start in a long finger glove or roll over in the morning with more of a thermal glove, and then I put on my Polsky gloves when I'm racing, and then maybe even like the second feed zone in my feed bags is a pair of short finger gloves. Like it really depends on what. They're so long that we have 30 to 40 degree temperature changes, and you really have to pay attention because that stuff can affect you negatively.
Yeah, you all are starting very, very early now because these races are so long. It's kind of crazy. And I've seen even Unbound, people are starting with like puffy jackets. You guys are on the line and it's that cold. And then the temperature swing is like, it goes crazy. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's pretty smart.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's really about how does your body regulate temperature because everyone's different. But yeah, I mean, I think I almost always start with a layer. Like I think Belgian Wolf Ride this weekend was nice enough that I didn't, but I think as I had a vest and arm warmers and a second set of gloves on to start. That stuff it's easy to throw in the first feed zone if you have to.
Yeah, that's really smart. Really smart. So the second piece is the footwear and socks and things like that. I know, Lani can probably talk a lot about it. And socks are important because like there's so many different, like I've even seen the new Pearl socks. You have is it the Air?
Transfer Air, probably.
Yeah.
We have a Merino Air as well, depending on if you want synthetic or organic.
I think I had the Merino one. There's a lot of sock tech now, but then there's also even more sock tech with this like sublimated, like aero socks and things like that. Like you see people coming to the line with these like giant wacky socks. What's your sock game? Like, what's the deal? Are you just grabbing the color
of races? I love Pearl's wool socks. They're my go-to. That's the stuff. I think I have like 15 pairs, and in the winter sometimes I'll run through all of them. And I honestly like they've changed a little bit, but they were so good back in 2013, 2014, 2015 that sometimes I'm still using some of the same pairs of socks, which is probably quite disgusting. For racing, I tend to change a lot. NB has a pair of socks I wear sometimes that aren't Pearl, something we're working on. I am very picky when it comes to the places I touch a bike. So how are you interacting with the saddle? How are you interacting with your handlebars? How are you interacting with your shoes and your pedals? So I think for me, socks is mainly based on temperature again. Almost always Leadville will be in the merino sock because it can do anything. It's not like you get super hot if we're finishing at noon or 1. A race like Kansas, for example, like I wouldn't risk it with a sock. And then you start playing with like, okay, do I need a toe cover? Do I need a booty? What can I take off? What do I not want to take off? It's trying to just balance all that stuff. Wool for me is always the best when you think there's any chance of precipitation because I hate cold feet and cold hands.
And that just stays warm, right? Like that barrier, it doesn't really break down as much as synthetic, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so I change a lot. I just, I tend to, the way we're moving with aerodynamic socks and really light socks is not the way. Maybe it's like gloves. I'm just a thick person. I like thick things. I don't know. But I tend to always move toward wool or a little bit of a thicker sock as opposed to having the lightest thing. Because I think that compression point on a foot is kind of important. People always have these like, oh, well, my foot went numb or this happened or that happened because it was really hot. And I feel like a lot of that is us over tightening shoes or things happening in the moment because you get excited and there's a very slim barrier. And so
those new boas can really tighten down. I had a conversation with someone the other day.
When you're on the start line, you just start wrenching. I'm like,
it's like the Li2 or something like that. The one that has like the little teeth on the alloy ones. You can tighten them down. And what shoes are you wearing? What's the shoe?
Currently not Pearl. We're trying. We're figuring that out. I've still, when Pearl was with Shimano, I moved to Shimano shoes from Bont. I'm very picky about things. I think it's just trying to figure out. I haven't had enough time to test shoes to be able to be like, this is what I'm going to wear now.
Shoes are a very personal thing. Like I equate them to like ice skates and things like that. Like when I was playing hockey, it was like, this is it. I would rather have like this old clapped out one that I, just am used to, but then that's the other thing I saw with you all at Sea Otter is you guys are stepping up the shoe game again and going into like a carbon sole. And what were the shoes that we saw? That was was it the Expedition Pro shoe?
Yeah, we have an Expedition Pro with a full carbon outsole, but it's really in its stiffness and its functionality is really at the $200 to $300 price point. And a race shoe needs to be, with its stiffness and its heel cup reinforcement, needs to be at probably a $400. Like it's going to be a race shoe.
Yeah.
So as Alexey mentioned, we're not making currently an XC race shoe at this moment. So not that we aren't using these guys to help us with future iterations potentially.
Man, I used to love the Pearl that had it was the one that you could walk and it was a flexible carbon sole. That was such a great shoe. That was really high in the cyclocross scene. That had a lot of cred. So we'll be excited to watch the space for sure.
Yeah. But I do think that for more of a commercial, maybe not racer needs, the mass market could easily benefit from a full carbon weave outsole shoe. And when you look in the market, I think a lot of European cycling brands that do better maybe in Europe than like a Shimano and Specialized pretty much dominate the US market. There's just now looking at seamless uppers, and we've been doing seamless uppers for 5 years, if not longer now. So I think that a lot of folks, including yourself, are putting our shoes on and they're pleasantly, wow, this is actually very conforming. There isn't a lot of hot spots. It feels very pliable.
Yeah.
It's got a dual boa zone adjustment. So there's a lot packed into that 260 plus shoe.
And I think people, speaking as a journalist, not speaking for all of us, but I could. And I'm saying, holy crap, a $500 shoe is just not palatable. For you to sit down and be able to say like, this is such a deal, check out the shoe. And then like you get, to use Shimano, for example, like the XC7s, I've raced in those and those are great, and you could even go down the line and you're like, this is good. Like, what are we getting here with all this? And I understand the racers are going to want the race stuff, but like it's pushing too much into the things are getting so sheer, they're getting so one season use, that it's hard to say. But Alexey, I saw you were like, dude.
No, I just, and I learned this. There's a project I run called From the Ground Up that brings amateurs to Leadville. And I honestly, every year, I think I understand what it's like to be a beginner athlete. And then you realize you don't.
Yeah.
An example of that is like our first year we had them on hardtails with high post. Like, this is the lightest bike you can take. Good luck at Leadville. Have fun.
Yeah.
No one. Right. The next year you got droppers. No one finished.
Yeah.
We had most people finish on 130 millimeter travel bikes.
That's amazing.
Which no one would say is the right choice, but for a beginner, that is the right choice. To take on Leadville in 5 months is bonkers. So you need the tools for that. people tend to always aim for the fastest, lightest, stiffest stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And made for people that aren't going to be out there for 12 hours.
Yeah.
Right? Like I explained that to people at Leadville. Leadville for me is a normal day. Very hard, but it's 6 hours.
Yeah.
I'm not out there walking up Columbine. I'm not out there. That, no question asked, the XC9 Shimano shoe that I'm running is not the right choice for you.
Yeah.
Right? People they want to think that's the best option because they see people doing it.
Your body's conditioned for that, like you've trained, you do 6 hours, a day or whatever. And like, that's a normal day. But for someone getting off, not the couch, but getting off like a 9-hour week to do a 9-hour day or a 10-hour day is a lot to ask. And to walk around in dance shoes, I talk to people all the time about if your feet go numb, that's not a performance enhancement, that's a problem. Like it's too stiff for you. You need a little.
That's my favorite. Everyone's like, "I'll get out your chamois after a race." Of course. When I see people in a carbon-soled shoe after a race, I'm like, "You crazy?"
Yeah.
That's not fun. I'm out of those shoes as quickly as I can get out of them.
That's me in the road.
Bring your Crocs.
Yes. Yeah. You need the after.
So I think the whole like this can be shoes or tires or anything, but the way pros race is not the way everyone should race, right? There's a group underneath it that are elite that are trying to find the marginal gains or whatever you want to call them, the last little bits to make them faster. But for most people, same thing with tires. I see people on like a 2.2 mountain bike tire now, and I'm like, that's not the best option for you. I'm riding that because I'm going to hit something at 35 miles an hour I never saw.
Yeah.
Not because I think it's a fast tire. So there's this whole concept. It's hard to talk about without alienating things, but it tends to be like when you actually get down into it and the nitty gritty with anyone in the sport who's enjoying their day.
Yeah.
They probably shouldn't be looking at the top end of the sport.
It's tough for us.
There is a thing as being over-engineered, right? For the experience that a person's hoping to go after. And I think it's really crucial for an apparel brand that's not only servicing athletes is to understand where those riders are going to be and making products appropriate for those scenarios. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's tough to see when people when they want that stuff, but it's too much of like, it's too far of a gulf to go over. But then also I don't like seeing the brands that where they have this, flagship product and then it just gets dumbed down, and it's just like less and less and less. And you're like, well, that was obviously really cool. Like guys just took things away and didn't make it for that other person. It didn't grade in a right way. It sort of just dropped all the cool stuff out,
It's a different tire.
Yeah. And you're like, yeah, this is not cool. But, that's such a great way to explain it though, to be like, yeah, this is the shoe or the piece of kit that you need. Because when I explain or try to explain a $500 shoe, is a guy that's not in the world tour, it's tough to really say like the benefits, besides comfort, and shoes are getting wider and that's a huge benefit, imagine they're foot shaped now, but it's tough to explain. But I did want to touch on one thing because we didn't, this isn't very clothing related, but you're mentioning bringing people to Leadville. And this is something that I think we kind of gloss over because we see Willie, we see your wins, we see all the riding and racing and stuff that you're doing, but like you're doing a lot on developmental, bringing kids up and bringing riders into the forefront of gravel. So you have two sort of efforts in this realm, right? We talked about it a bit on the Envy ride.
Yeah, I don't. When I left the world tour, there was no exit plan. I hadn't gone to college. I didn't know what I was doing. When I started racing gravel, there was no gravel, right? I just kind of got lucky and it built, and it's been exciting. And I've loved that I've gotten to be myself and hold on to my personality while growing with a company like Pearl or while growing with a company like Envy.
Yeah,
and the beautiful part of that is actually not the free gear and everything else. It's the ability to impact the people around you positively, because everyone's trying to do their job in the best way, and it's easy to feel like there's no progression sometimes.
Yeah,
and that's all I focused on them since the minute I felt like I had some semblance of a voice in gravel, which is just like a little validation of results. I feel like I've wanted to just try to impact other people around me, right? I think the whole group that came in during the pandemic was insanely important and added so much value to everybody in the sport. those people came in not because of Greg or Lance or anyone they watched. They came in because their gym's closed and they need mental sanity from their families.
Yeah.
Right? Totally different.
100%. Yeah.
And then now that the Grand Prix is growing, it's like, okay, we're so focused on the top end. Oh, look what Keegan or Alexey or Sarah Sturm's doing. And no one's talking about, hey, this 18-year-old kid who's flying. And okay, he finished 6th. But
not,
like no one looks at him because, oh, well, yeah, he didn't win. Well, yeah, he just got crushed by Keegan and Alexey for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And taught him what we learned 5 years ago. So I think trying to impact those positively is all I want to do. So it's wherever I can make those little impacts, I try to do so.
And you're bringing these guys, girls, to races, and you have a team, right? You have the developmental team.
Yeah. So Envy's gravel team is just based around kind of learning through action. So we have 3 younger athletes this year, 4. Alexander Charles was 18th at Leadville last year at 18 years old.
Holy crap.
From Utah, like someone you like barely would have seen, right? But like just went out there and made it happen.
Yeah.
Truman Glasgow was 6th this past weekend at Belgian Waffle Ride, and like it was the first moment I called Neil after, and I was like, this is special. Like I was able to, like, the minute we were in a 5-up break, I went up to Truman and I said, stop riding like you're Matt Beers, because you're not. You're not.
But I'm 18. That's it.
So you just work through like all these people and try to help. And that was the one thing we learned. So we did phase 2 last year, where you met Neruda at Grovio.
Yeah.
Phase 2 is great, but it was based around content. And I kind of, I think that took away from the actual value of moving athletes forward. And so we took all that money we put into content last year and moved it straight into just like creating an actual space to do that. So we had a camp together in March where everyone got together, talked about product.
That's so cool.
And I think can just learn through, like, how does Alexey act with Neil? How do you interact with that relationship, right?
You don't have a mustache, though. That's the first thing I would have grown, is a very thick mustache to interact with.
What else can do that? That's not dog.
Yeah.
The relationship I have with Lani, for example, or Neil, it's not something I think athletes glance over it. It's a really important part of being a professional bike racer. You can win all you want, but you're not valuable to the company unless you're actually able to articulate why and where things are valuable to you.
Yeah.
In your community.
And these are good people, though, you're mentioning too. Like, this is people that want to grow the sport. Not only that, but like invest in the future and deliver excellent products. Lani's mentioned the environment many times today, and that's a big deal, especially in the clothing industry where dyes and all this other stuff, there's so many pollutants and things in it. I don't think people realize, but like having people on that side of the fence for the industry is huge,
And being open. I think one of the things I've appreciated from all of my partners, and Pearl's understood the most because it's a whole double set, but I train an inline kit 98% of the time because that's what's relatable to someone else when I pass them on a road. When I pass them the dog, an inline kit, and we're wearing the same tights, it's just a moment, right?
You said that to me on, what was it? On the Envy ride. I had my Pearl kit on. It was very, I had the full kit, man. I was rolling. And you were like, I like your kit. And I was like, who is it?
So that's the thing you have. That's if I'm riding around. If I need to tell someone I'm a sponsored athlete, then I'm not doing my job.
Yeah.
Right. And that might feel like we have to. When we're younger, we feel like we have to not brag, but act confident all the time about what I'm doing and tell people who you are.
It was like a NASCAR advert, like you would come up and I remember seeing, folks, and still like that in the cross scene, but like, you got the hat on and then all the logos all over and, like now it's more personality. Yeah.
It's some custom kit and it looks awesome. And I think it fits it. You support everybody in that way, but there's a place here where you have to actually get down to brass tacks and talk to people and be around and be down on the ground. And that to me is something that's hard to learn as an athlete because it takes time and it takes balance and it takes energy. And then you have to race the next day. But it is just as important as the race. That's
so great, though, to have these kids, learn that from a trusted voice like you and be able to go out there and affect good change.
We'll see if it's trusted. Sometimes I get information. That's just
So that's amazing. This has been such an awesome call. I guess for the last bit, for our listeners, I'd love to know what's the must check out pieces of kit for Pearl. Like, what's the one, like, you got to go to the store and be like, yo, do you got this in stock? Because it's tough now with online shopping and everything like that. Like people don't get to put hands-on. They don't have hands-on kit. Like, what's the ones we talked about that are like the must-have? are the must check outs or your fave?
So you want to go first, Lani?
Well, I think everybody listening is going to care about I work for the company. I could fill in maybe
because
if
you
you
ride
missed
too,
something.
and you have great advice. We talked about even like the gloves on climbs, the gloves for intervals. You know your stuff, obviously. You know.
Yeah. I would definitely look for products if you're looking for a transition season or winter season. This Polartec Alpha Direct, a lot of people that are in the industry that know that technology, they understand it, but I don't think it's mainstream quite yet. And we have a glove, we have a vest, we have jackets, we have a layering piece made with that material.
I love that layering piece. It's awesome.
It's like magic. So, everyone can understand wool and how that's awesome as a temperature thermoregulating product. Alpha Direct is that on steroids, and it is very low bulk, very low volume, feels light on the body, lets you have a lot of stretch and movement, but offers this awesome thermal regulation component. So my favorite gloves are the Summit Alpha gloves because they can hit a huge range and you don't have to be so knowledgeable on which to pick. So that's probably where I would go. And then obviously this new Expedition Pro bib has become, one of my favorite pieces.
It's mine too. Yeah.
So.
Perfect.
Expedition thermal tights by far. They're my go-to gift when someone does something. I sent something to Nico and all the MB team 2 years ago.
That's awesome.
It's like a second skin. Like I hate leg warmers for the most part. I hate that crunch behind your knee. They just fit really well. And then I end up pushing the limits of weather quite a lot. So my go-to, which is it's thick and hard to handle, but the Canyon Ecoloft jacket, it's like a puffy.
Yeah.
It saved my ass on multiple occasions.
That's awesome. I think I've seen lots of photos of you in this teal piece. Is that like the teal?
If I don't have that one, it's because Sophie stole it and I have to use the gray.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think it's hard to pick the best, but it's always like, for me, it's those moments where I'm like, holy crap, that would have sucked. Like I'm up at 10,000 feet and it starts snowing. Like, that saved my ass.
We don't get that in Pittsburgh. Not too much. What's the gloves? The gloves the Alexey gloves that you got to check out that you wear all the time that are.
I think the gloves that I like I always lean toward winter because I feel like some people mess up the most.
Yeah.
But I think I'm trying to figure out. I think the Amphib gloves are probably my favorite because they're actual glove that keeps you warm.
Yeah.
The lobster gloves, if it's really cold, I think that's like a Pearl special, obviously. But
were you the first to? Was Pearl the first one with the lobster gloves?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was like, I remember seeing those in the store and being like, what the hell is this? And then I put them on and I was like, this makes so much sense.
Yeah. And I think I lean toward that, not because I think it's like the greatest piece Pearl makes, but more because a lot of cycling companies, you get to either end of the spectrum, and they struggle to actually make products that I'd rather like, I'm just going to go to Carhartt or I'm going to go to Arc'teryx or find that exactly keeps me warm.
Yeah.
Their winter gloves actually keep you warm, which is nice. It might not be nice for everybody. Some people don't want to ride below 30 degrees, but for me, it's one of those things that just allows me to do my job.
Yeah.
Typically, I still bring a couple pairs. I think that's the biggest tip for riding in the cold is bring multiple pairs of things.
Yeah, Lani and I were talking about that. That's when I found that hack out like that, and someone told me to put a base layer in a Ziploc bag if I'm going on some giant ride and change it in a coffee shop, and I was like, this is life changing. But
you're a different human. When you
it's like like you had a shower. Yeah, it's amazing.
So, trying to think of anything else that I love all the new Alpha stuff. Probably the vest is my favorite.
But I'm just going to cheat here, Alexey, because we were surprised. You came in for a fitting for a future development. Yeah. And he's telling us that he loves the Attak Barrier jacket, which is, it packs down smaller than your fist, the vest even smaller. And I don't know if you want to say why you love that.
It's layering. Like, so it's funny because a lot of times I will purposely not. I like going into Pearl and figuring out why things are created after the fact because they're not the way I use them typically.
Yeah.
And I literally didn't know this product existed, and randomly was like, oh, I'm going to go on and like buy a couple jackets. And like, I went on and got this packable jacket, and I was like, this thing is amazing.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like the perfect, like, winter into spring is happening.
Yeah.
And I'm always cold when I leave the house. And so I can layer with this extra thing that I can literally put anywhere. I can stuff it in my saddlebag. I can put it in my pocket. I can put it in the pocket on my bibs, and I'm not going to notice it. And then it just like, it saves you over top. It's like a tiny little wind barrier when you're already sweaty and going
Is that
down.
the one that has a pretty tight hood, right?
Oh, no hood. This is just like,
so this is another one I'm thinking.
It's just the Attak Barrier. So it's a really almost like a super lightweight nylon, out shell. But
oh, cool.
I think the fact that it doesn't breathe. So for us, when we move up the line, we want a material that actually can breathe and handle in case you can't get it off, right?
Yeah.
But Alexey doesn't care because he's using it slightly differently, right? Is that like, if I'm not really worried about that, I'm putting it over top of pieces as one more wind barrier shield.
Yeah. It's like that after interval, you're riding home, it's getting dark out, kind of, when you're overheated, you got to go down a hill. That makes a lot of sense. I'm checking this one out too, because that sounds.
This is something like a lot of jackets to be usable for their purpose don't fit into like a down tube storage or something, right?
No,
it's just, I can literally put anywhere. You won't notice it. You can put it on your neck and you would never notice it. Like, it's so easy that I think and I think the conversation we were having is it does what I'm trying to make it do well, but not as well as other jackets Pearl has in their line.
Yeah.
But my point is it's highly packable, and it does everything I need it to because I'm layering differently with it than normally.
It's back to our conversation of over engineering, right? Is that, okay, well, it has zero stretch. Yeah. Okay, well, most people, as they move up, they want it to conform and stretch and move with the body. Has no breathability. Okay, as you move up the range, you would expect that the material could have some kind of breathability or completely waterproofing property.
Yeah.
But, for Alexey, his main demand is like, the more that you want it packable, you have to then you lose the features. You can't have both. It's just like, you can't have waterproof breathable. There's always a compromise, right?
Yeah.
Even though we say that you can have both, you really can't. So packability, if you want it to be completely waterproof, if you want two-way zipper, if you want an extra pocket on that vest, all of a sudden you're impacting your packability. And what Alexey was telling us was, number one, most packable, don't care about any other features, just need it there for emergency packable.
Yeah.
Ding, and it doesn't cost much.
No,
so it's like, we don't have to overbuild something.
Well, that's why you got to talk to the riders and the people that design it, because like, if you're at a store and you're saying, I want something really nice, it's probably going to go to the higher expensive items, but if you give a use case and you're like, no, that's not going to work. You need this, like, and unfortunately, like, some of these kits you could crash in and not have to worry about it. You crash in a really expensive piece of kit, that's the worst, crashing in something like, that you didn't pay an arm and a leg for is like, there's a little more peace of mind there.
And I think to finish it off, that's something I always appreciate is it's funny how much, and this is at a lot of companies, right, that are successful in the industry, in my opinion, the people working on products ride bikes.
That's
huge. Very evident when I come in, right?
Yeah.
It's funny when we're at a round table at Pearl and I'll say something and you could tell it's been a topic of conversation that's not been agreed upon yet. And someone will be like, see, I told you so. And I'm like, one, I'm validated.
Yeah.
And two, I know, like, I added to a conversation because it's true. They're all right. Before I get it, they're all riding in it, right?
Yeah.
That's first. They don't want to give me something that I'm going to have an issue with or struggle with in a race. And that's that first line of defense is all of Lani and the entire team at Pearl testing it out through their own rides, whether it's into work or on lunch ride or anything else, and then taking the next step.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's why we're all here. We all ride and love bikes, and I love going to a company and knowing that everybody's just as passionate, about riding and it's very cool. That was one of the things with the NV Rodeo that I was like, oh man, these folks can hammer, It's nice. It's nice to know that.
I don't know how that ride is legal in some ways. Just it is so hard that I don't think it makes sense.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
So many people mess me like, hey, I'm going to come out to Rodeo this year. I'm like, really?
Yeah, I have the buckle on my wall, the sheriff's badge, because I was like, yeah, this was way tougher than I thought, like it just is a good reminder, but it's also gives you this like, oh yeah, you feel good when you know somebody else in a company that you trust is riding and putting in that work. So putting in that fun, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for making time today and coming out and talking to me and nerding out about some clothing and all the gear. And Alexey, thank you for making a special appearance because this is very cool. And Lani, thank you so much for your expertise. It's been awesome.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
So where can we check you out? Alexey, what's the let you give the
my name at Alexey Vermeulen. It's good luck finding it. You can follow Willie.
Willie's on there?
That's for Willie the Wiener.
Okay. That sounds and Lani, I'm guessing Pearl. Go on the Pearl site.
PearlIzumi.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Take care.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Bye.